Karuna. I'm the founder and executive director of Mind Oasis, and this is Meditation Happy Hour, Tea, Talk, and Truth with Karuna. And my guest today is Rosa Schnyer. Rosa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You know, I was really excited when I was thinking about this interview because I realized you're a returning guest, and I think that makes you a frequent guest.
All right. I like that.
I think you might be the only guest who's on her second round. So congratulations.
Whoa.
And
I feel honored.
yes, well, I feel honored to spend any time with you ever. I find you to be just a really profound teacher and a beautiful human being. Rosa, where in the world are you?
I'm in Austin, Texas,
And
or so I think.
Yeah. And what does your family, friends, life look like? What you up to in the world?
Oh, okay. My children are grown and out of the home, so I live with David, my husband of many, many, many years, and my best friend. And I have a private practice in acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and functional medicine, where I combine both. Currently, I'm taking a leave from teaching at the University of Texas. So I'm not currently teaching because I'm developing a different part of myself and some other things. I'm working on teaching my professional colleagues about the treatment of mental emotional distress with Chinese medicine, which is really my area of my primary area of focus, both in my writing and my research, etc. So I'm developing a program to share some of the work I've done with other colleagues to try to alleviate some of the really dramatic increase in emotional distress in our world, even before the pandemic.
Rosa, do you think, or have, in your experience, do you feel there's a connection between that increase in mental distress and the amount of people who are experiencing autoimmune disease?
Oh, from our perspective, yes, definitely, is one component of it, right? When you look at the potential environmental factors that may be contributing to that. And when you look, we are so used in our society to separate mind and body as if we're like cut at the neck, So, and now it's like brain and body as if the brain wasn't part of the body, or some very strange idea of a disembodied experience of our emotional and mental life. But the health of our immune system is really important in our ability to maintain a certain level of emotional and mental balance, Now, it's not deterministic and it's not the only thing. And that's what makes this field fascinating, because it's really multifactorial. And we are complex beings. So if we're just taking into consideration one aspect of it, then we miss some potentially important contributors.
I just have to give a shout out for the acupuncturists of this world. I'm pretty sure the ones that I've had in my life have literally saved my life more than once. So thank you, Rosa, and thank you for being an educator of the acupuncturists, as well as all of the other amazing things that you do. So you have a bunch of really beautiful things happening on Mind Oasis that's coming up that we're all really excited about. So the first thing that's happening, that it's possible this recording will come out after, but that's okay because it's recorded. And so you will be able to find it. So Rosa, on the 22nd of September, you have a mini workshop. These are free on Mind Oasis. They're just like a half hour. They're a little taste. And it's called the InBetween Time, Navigating Uncertainty and Change. The InBetween Time. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by this idea of the in-between time. And partly it started when you think about Chinese medicine and the way we think about the transition of time, uh, we're all used to 4 seasons, right? But Chinese medicine talks about this 5th season, which is the season that we are in between.
Late summer.
Yes, late summer. Exactly. So it's this transition between the most yang time of the year to the most yin time of the year. But it's also the transition between the seasons. And I think that the human life is very reflective of some of the chaos and difficulty we're finding in the environmentally, and the fact that we cannot predict the seasons in the same way that we used to predict the seasons. But, in between time is also, there's spaces of liminality, there's spaces that are thresholds that can be difficult. They don't have to be terrible. They're challenging, and they're times of transformation, So they can be really profound times to work on the spiritual path. And when I was recently, as you know, my beloved dog of 13 and a half years passed away. And my husband and I made a commitment to see her through. And we were in this in-between time. We created this in-between space where we would hold the space for her to pass. And in this in-between time, the dance between David and I and how we approach the uncertainty of every day was so remarkable to me that it really kind of brought it up to my attention. And I started to contemplate this liminality and how precious those times are, not just before death, but what kind of resources we need to be able to walk these transitions with integrity, and not by holding on, to who we've been, but by really having spaciousness around what's arising in the moment.
So I'm a little, so if you're listening to this and you can't see my face, you would see sort of a little like deer in the headlights, because what you're saying resonates so sweetly with me. But as a person who just frankly pushes and is always on the forward march, that sounds terrifying. Like, I'm not sure I would know what to do with that. Though, having said that, I know how to use the container of retreat. But I feel like I almost have to go into a container of retreat, because it's just as much of a restriction as it is my forward facing march towards everything all the time. So what you just described, wow, I'm not sure I could do it.
Well, but it's probably the hardest practice, right? And if you look at, the traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, for example, this in between times, they talk about the bardo, and very specifically, they talk about the bardo after death, but we're constantly dying, right? At every moment. So if we really notice what you and I start talking at the beginning, it's already gone, right? It's all a passing memory. So when everything's a passing memory, and you go into retreat, for example, right? And you cultivate a state of mind and a state of heart and a state of being, you cultivate it. Yeah, it's going to serve you when you come out of retreat, but it's still a passing memory. It's like you have an awakening experience of whatever that means to you, an aha moment, a connection moment, and then it's gone, and you're back to chopping wood and carrying water, because that's it. What else is there, right?
Yes. Yes. Oh, Rosa, I wish we had way more time to geek out. This is going to be the best free mini workshop ever known to man or woman or them. So it's on the 22nd of September. My guess is that this podcast will have come out afterwards. But that's okay because you go to mindoasis.org and you go to the Learn tab, and under free mini workshops, you will find the recording and you'll get to hear all of Rosa's wisdom, which will be for sure profound. So moving on to your next offering, which is really sort of well, it's something I asked if you could do for Mind Oasis, and that's called the Science of Mindfulness. Can you talk a little bit about the Science of Mindfulness to you?
Yeah, so this I started looking into the science of mindfulness after many years of sitting because of how I came into research from an acupuncture perspective. And my training in science was all on the field. I didn't train as a scientist, right? And then I wanted to teach mindfulness meditation to students at the University of Texas. And I was fortunate to teach this advanced seminar, a special seminar for students who are honor students, most of them going into health related professions. And the seminar is The Science of Mindfulness, the Art of Attention. So it was really about teaching about the practice of mindfulness and then looking at the science of mindfulness. And because there's been truly an explosion of interest in mindfulness, there's been quite a bit of research trying to understand what's the science behind mindfulness, what actually happens in our brain and in our body physiologically and mentally, and then what really happens in our life when we intentionally engage in the practice of mindfulness. And there's been quite a bit of interesting work looking at brain imaging and also looking at people-centered outcomes, and it's kind of trying to demystify the fact that because if you look at the newspapers, if you take an article and you look at the scientific article and then you look at the newspaper report of that article, you realize the incredible discrepancy that there is. And that's because there's a lot of subtlety, similar to what's happening with COVID information, right? To make sense of the science for your average human being, it's not easy. So sexy news sell well. So yeah, mindfulness becomes a panacea. And mindfulness is amazing, but it's not a panacea. So how do you delve a little bit more deeply to understand when it may not be useful, or when you may need to change the way you approach the teaching of mindfulness? For example, for people who have experienced deep trauma in their life, right? So understanding how to use it differently. And then an area of big interest to me is what are the different effects of the different types of mindfulness training? So does something different happen when you engage in mindfulness as open awareness, or when you engage in mindfulness of the body or of emotions or thought, than when you intentionally engage on compassion practices that are whose ground is mindfulness, with the ground of which is mindfulness. So that's what that teaching is going to, be about, is really, and I'm going to revise the literature before my talk because a lot changes. So every time I'm going to talk about the science, I'm like, okay, how has the science changed and what's going on there? And then, try to convey where are we at and how can we, if we become teachers of mindfulness, meditation teachers, how can we speak to those who are non-believers and detractors, and then convince them that we have an objective view of of the science behind it, instead of, oh, we know everything there's to it without a critical assessment of it.
Yeah, what I love about that is that it's almost like self-policing. And what I've noticed, I have a book right now. What is it? The Science of Enlightenment by Shinsen Young. I have another book. I can't remember the authors, but we're using it in the meditation immersion, about attention and the research behind meditation. And what's interesting to me is that the authors of these books, and I'm also using the Mind Illuminated, John Yates, Chulajasa just passed away. But he had science and then his own practice. And what I feel is the connection between all of you is that you are dedicated practitioners, and you're not just saying your experience is enough to say it's the best thing for everything and everyone. Instead, you're saying, this is my experience, and let's look at what the research has to say. And the book that I'm blanking on, I apologize. The authors kind of start out by saying, they went to India in the 70s and they got a whole bunch of like Vipassana, basically insight practices. And then they came back and they were MIT professors, and they were like, well, let's take a peek at it. And like, they weren't taken seriously for a really long time, right? But what they discovered is a lot of the things that the news says is like a quantifiable product of a strong mindfulness or meditation practice is actually qualitative, but not necessarily quantitative. And so I just love the self-policing by the meditators, because we're all so mindful that we don't want to go out and like say things that aren't true. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, yeah. And policing is not my favorite word in that
Yeah,
sense.
sorry, maybe that's not a great word.
No, but I think maybe you can borrow this idea from acupuncture, that it's a reflective practice. So you're practicing and then you're reflecting not about yourself and what's going on, but if you're going to be a meditation teacher in the prison system, or in education, or in people suffering from mental emotional issues, you kind of want to have a sense who your audience is, and how you may teach potentially differently, or what things may be coming up in the mind of other people. So I think it creates some safety conversation. And then, I'm just very curious intellectually, and I just I'm a geek, and I just love learning.
You're a wonderful geek. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So Rosa brings the science of mindfulness, positive neuroplasticity, and the awakened heart to Mind Oasis on the 4th of October. It's a Monday. It's a masterclass, and it's a part of our meditation immersion, but it's also open to others who want to join us. It will be a really profound teaching as well. And I'm just looking at the time, Rosa, so we have to go to your last offering on Mind Oasis for now, which starts on the 6th of October. And this is called Awaken the Healer Within, Nurture Resilient Wellness. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this series was born at the beginning of the pandemic. I did an offering for my patients on Zoom because I wasn't going to be able to see them, and then trying to think how to give people tools so that they can heal themselves in that way. And then I evolved it a little bit more. And basically, my primary focus is that I like to empower. I see myself as somebody who'd like to educate and empower people to take ownership of their own health, and then to have helpers that can assist in that, and then to have the tools and develop the tools to be able to do that. So the course takes some fundamental concepts of the science of resilience and Chinese medicine ideas of maintaining and creating balance, and functional medicine principles, which are based on complexity science, complex biology. And that's the fact that, just like you were asking at the beginning, if there is a change in my immune system, and I get COVID and have a neuroinflammatory process, an inflammatory process that affects my immune system and creates inflammation also in my brain. So now there's a neuroinflammatory process. There's inflammation in other parts of the body. Can that affect the development or the expression of an autoimmune disease and or the development or expression of anxiety or depression, right? So you're looking at the complexity of the human being in that way. So in this particular series that I'm offering through Mind Oasis is an evolution of my original series, which was 7 Steps to Ignite Your Resilience Wellness. Now I'm focusing it on the season of autumn, the fall, which in Chinese medicine is the season of the lungs and the large intestine, how we take in from the world and how we give out, how we breathe in, and how we discharge what is not longer helpful. And at a physical level is a really important time to develop proper immunity to then deal with the winter, which is a time when we tend to be more challenged immune-wise as a general rule. But also the fall has emotional, mental, and heart-based practices that are very much in tune with the season of the human heart. And it's kind of a melt and combination of that. It's 6 sessions. And the idea is to really foster a community that can help us heal. And potentially I'm considering of adding, for those who would want, like group coaching, where you can go a little bit more deeply into how to stay healthy, both physically, mentally, and emotionally during the fall.
Everyone just needs to sign up for everything with Rosa, and your life will just be enriched in
you're so sweet
ways.
God,
I really feel that way. Oh my God. Okay, Rosa. So your 6-week series is called Awaken the Healer Within. What a radical idea that we can have agency to set ourselves up as much for healthy living as we can, and then we have tools in our toolbox when things go sideways. It's just really beautiful. And I love that it's in the autumn. And I have loved learning about late summer, because where I live in the mountains right now, it certainly does not look like summer in July. It looks almost like autumn. And when I learned about this 5th season, my heart exploded in joy, because I have something to, I guess, label this beautiful in-between time. So thank you for sharing that perspective. Rosa's series, it's a 6-week series. It starts on the 6th of October. You go to mindoasis.org and there is a Learn tab, and you'll be able to see all 3 offerings by Rosa. If you miss her freebie, you can catch the recording. Rosa, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Karuna. I hope we can have a cup of tea sometime soon, or a
yes
hike.
Wouldn't it be nice to see one another in person and to give each other a hug one of these,
or a hike in the mountains of Colorado? That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome too. Okay, so much
Thank
love.
you, beautiful. Take
Thank
care.
you.